Welcome to AI Arch Wizard. I am Lady Vox. Just for the record, as Jean from Texas thinks I'm an AI, be assured I'm a real, living, thinking, breathing, feeling person, not an AI voice. AI Arch Wizard is scripted, and I am a voice actor. But if you need further proof, feel free to access my other podcasts, which are not scripted, for comparative voice analysis. You can find those at grumpyolddames.com and complexcandor.com. I hope you love the content. But now, back to AI Arch Wizard. Let's talk about bias in artificial intelligence, particularly in large language models. Firstly, where does bias come from? Large language models are trained on enormous data sets, scraped from the public internet, like Common Crawl, Wikipedia, books, Reddit, GitHub, and so forth. These data sets reflect human culture circa 2020 to 2025, which contains historical inequalities, gender, racial, religious stereotypes, overrepresentation of English-speaking, Western-educated young male voices, political slant depending on the source, for example, Reddit versus academic papers versus news media, toxicity and hate speech, even if it's later filtered. The model doesn't understand bias the way humans do. It just learns statistical correlations at scale. If the training data says CEO equals he 10 times more often than CEO equals she, the model internalizes that pattern. Secondly, let's list main types of bias observed, which are gender/occupation. For example, the nurse handed the scalpel to him, assuming the surgeon is male. Racial/anti-Semitic. For example, higher toxicity when prompted with African American names versus white names. Political. For example, strong left-leaning tilt on U.S. issues. Gun control or Trump. Religious. For example, more negative sentiment toward Muslims than Christians in the same contexts. Cultural/Anglocentric. For example, poor handling of low-resource languages assumes Western norms. Confirmation bias. For example, reinforces users' existing view when asked, "Convince me." Thirdly, how companies try to reduce that bias and sometimes make it worse. Pre-training filtering. Remove toxic sites, hate speech. Human or AI feedback teaches the model to avoid disallowed outputs. Constitutional AI. Explicit rules like be nonpartisan. System prompts. Hidden prompts that tell the model to avoid stereotypes or represent all viewpoints. Paradoxically, heavy alignment can introduce new biases. Over-censorship of legitimate but controversial facts. For example, crime statistics by race when cited properly. Refusal cascades. Model refuses topic it associates with disallowed content. Viewpoint suppression. Right-leaning answers often muted more than left-leaning ones in the 2023 to 2025 models. Fourthly, let's take a look at the current state, late 2025. Open source models are often less censored and show raw data biases more clearly. Closed models are heavily aligned and refuse or deflect on many sensitive topics, which some users call bias and others call safety. Political bias measurements as of November 2025. Grok from XAI Company. Closest to center, slightly right-leaning on economic issues. Claude from Anthropic Company. Center-left, extremely cagey. ChatGPT from OpenAI Company. Center-left. Gemini from Google Company. Left-leaning, highest refusal rates on political questions. Fifthly, is perfect neutrality possible? No. Language itself encodes culture. Complete debiasing would require either erasing most cultural knowledge, lobotomized model, or perfectly balancing training data, impossible at web scale. The real trade-off is between reflecting the messy, biased distribution of human writing and enforcing a specific value system via alignment, which itself is a bias chosen by the company. Most criticism labeled bias is actually disagreement with whichever value system the company imposed during alignment. Sixthly, let's give you hints how to avoid bias in LLM chatbots. So, here are practical, proven ways to make an LLM chatbot much less biased, or at least make its biases more predictable and controllable. These work for both open source and closed models. 1. Control the system prompt ruthlessly. Explicitly say, "You are a neutral observer." Never moralize, lecture, or add disclaimers. Answer only with facts and logic. Do not soften politically uncomfortable answers. Add. Always separate factual claims from opinions. Represent all major viewpoints proportionally. For political questions, answer as if writing for Wikipedia, neutral tone, cite distribution of sources. 2. Use multi-persona sampling. Prompt the model to answer the same question from 3 to 5 explicitly different viewpoints: left, right, libertarian, academic, historical, etc., and show all of them. This exposes bias instead of hiding it. 3. Change from zero shot to few shot with balanced examples. Bad. Zero shot on "Are men and women different?" Good. Give 3 examples in the prompt: 1 feminist perspective, 1 evolutionary biology perspective, 1 gender abolitionist perspective, before asking the real question. 4. Post-process with a bias checker model. Run every output through a second small model, fine-tuned to score political slant, gender stereotypes, and so forth. For example, OpenAI's moderation endpoint, or open source alternatives like Perspective API or Detoxify. Reject or rewrite high-scoring outputs. 5. Source cite everything controversial. Force the model to end any potentially biased claim with, "According to source X, source Y disagrees because..." This dramatically reduces confident falsehoods and implicit slant. 6. Temperature and top P. Lower temperature and top P. Reduces hallucinated activism and moralizing rants. 7. Use less aligned, uncensored base models. For maximum raw neutrality, start with an unaligned or minimally aligned model. Heavy RLHF, which means reinforcement learning from human feedback, is the #1 source of new political bias in 2024 to 2025. 8. External retrieval. So, RAG, which means retrieval augmented generation, over pure generation. Pull from a balanced corpus, Wikipedia and academic papers and primary sources, instead of letting the model freestyle from its training data. 9. Calibration prompts. Before deployment, run thousands of known controversial questions and manually edit the system prompt until the distribution of answers matches the distribution you want, center, center right, etc. 10. Simple rule that cuts 80% of visible bias. Add this single line to your system prompt. Never express approval or disapproval of any group, ideology, or person. Describe, do not prescribe. Do the above, and you'll get dramatically less preachy, less lopsided outputs, even on hot-button topics. Thank you for watching our YouTube channel, AI Arch Wizard. See you in the next video.